Welcome to the show!
This public service announcement was brought to you by Gnorwa.
While I'm waiting for the coffee, I'm trying to adjust this. It doesn't really seem very safe, and it probably isn't. Especially the philosophical content, because what you have here, for the most part, is what remains. Oh, there's another one. What remains of my Kierkegaard or Kierkegaard shelf. This one has seen better days. That's an old copy of Stages on Life's Way that I defaced a while ago. It's one of the only Kierkegaards that I defaced, but it was already ripped up, so I figured why not go the whole way. Commit yourself infinitely to scratching your favorite author's face off and making it look scary. Yeah, I knew there was more Kierkegaard lying around somewhere because I found in this stack here little selection from the journals. Not too long, a bit of light reading just in case you're interested in something nice for the summer. Sorry it's backwards. I'll fix that in the editing. There's volume 2 of Either Or, the Lowry translation. Let's see here. Okay, I think that's pretty much it, but it doesn't matter. This feels kind of like commodity fetishism at this point, but I think the coffee's coming pretty soon. Seriously though, there's a reason I'm doing this. I woke up this morning and I was going to do some sort of commentary on Fear and Trembling, but I did a 20-minute talk about that and got a bunch of details wrong. It was just embarrassing. I generally like to publish mistakes, but in case of scholarship about Kierkegaard, I'm not as willing to let those slide, so I thought of something a bit simpler, because what happened, really interestingly, was I woke up at around 9, and I thought, yeah, I'll do this Fear and Trembling video. And then when I read a little bit of Walter Lowry's introduction to his translation of it from the 60s, or maybe the 50s, so much for academic integrity. Anyway, so from Lowry's translator's introduction, I learned that today is May 6th. I didn't learn that from the introduction, but I learned that it's the anniversary of Kierkegaard's first published religious writing, which was the two upbuilding discourses of 1943, not quite, 1843, and it came out just a little bit after Either Or. I'm going to check that, but I need coffee, obviously, and that's why this is happening to me. I just can't really think straight until, you know, I chug a nice thick brew. And Kierkegaard, incidentally, I read in his biography a long time ago, never forgot, well, each day he would, at least during some period, probably his flourishing, and I don't know if this is a coincidence, right? He would have 1 cup of coffee, but he would put so much sugar in it that it literally, the coffee started to rise in the cup. So it was like syrup kind of coffee, and I used to try that once in a while, back when I was working in northern Alberta at the historical site, Dunvegan Valley. And you know what, today, since it's the anniversary of Kierkegaard's Two Upbuilding Discourses, I think I'm going to make myself one of those. I might have to run to the store for some sugar, though, because I ran out a while ago. I've always got my Nectar of the Gods handy when I can afford it, and so I'll also do a toast to Kierkegaard on this fine Monday morning. Is it morning still? I think it's 11:45. This fucking thing will probably take like 16 hours to upload. It won't be up till tomorrow. YouTube's so slow about that, but you know, there's worse things that one could complain about. Ooh, what's that sound? The sweet, sweet bubbling of carafe coffee. Alright. Turn off the heat. Get some. Oops. Spilled it a bit there. Oh, that is piping hot. Yummy. Gotta find that sugar. I think I might have some. Alright. I give up. I'm not going to go to the store and get sugar. Later on I'll get some though, and I'll have one Kierkegaard cup once the day starts getting rough and I have to go outside and see a bunch of Torontonians driving cars and almost killing people for no reason. Yeah, assholes. But anyways, yeah, where was I? So this is my Kierkegaard, or what remains of my Kierkegaard collection here, just to start us off, because Fear and Trembling thesis I have is pretty complicated and it's going to take a bit more preparation. Basically, just as a sneak preview, I'm going to talk about the epigraph, a little bit at the very beginning on the title page about Tarquinius and his messenger, or the messenger that was sent to him. Whoever Tarquinius Superbus is, I get more details about that. And what I think the significance, or one possible of many significances of this passage at the very beginning of Fear and Trembling, the pseudonymous work. It was written after either or on the Two Upbuilding Discourse. Incidentally, in a period of 2 months, they think, when Kierkegaard returned to Berlin after breaking it off with his fiancée Regina Olsen. He went to Berlin, and within 2 months, just one thing about the Regina thing. Okay, so, because everyone wants to know the juicy bits, right? So, this is just kind of self-indulgent, but, you know, par for the course around here. Her last name, Regina Olsen's last name, Olsen, was my grandmother's, on my mother's side, my maternal grandmother, her maiden name. And Kierkegaard's mother's maiden name was the same as my mother's maiden name, which was Lund. It's kind of weird. I like that because he's my favorite author. It took me a few years and realized he had these funny little naming coincidences with the two very significant women in his life, but his mother is mysteriously absent from most of his work. There's one author who psychologically speculated that the way that Kierkegaard's mother is acknowledged is through this kind of silence, but a meaningful one in his use of the, or his, you know, mastery, if you want to call it that. I don't really like the master signifier stuff, but his, I'd say like his intimacy, or something like his creative love of and expression of the Danish language as the mother tongue. It's a bit of a stretch, but I can't remember who even makes the argument, but I thought it was a nice thought. At least it's possible. It's not like he didn't love his mother. It's just that, you know, Daddy was kind of pretty intense to poor little Soren. Like, he's like 4 years old, 5 years old. There's this anecdote, kreia, the Greek word, the anecdote, about when him and his dad, Michael Peterson? God, is it Peterson? Hold on. Is Jordan Peterson the reincarnation of Kierkegaard's father? That would be really intense. That would explain why Tammy is a prophet. Or it would help explain how his wife got these. Oh my goodness. Oh good, it's spelled differently. Okay. It's Michael Peterson Kierkegaard. Not the same Peterson. All right, good. There's no like transmigration, some spiritual guruism. He's going to take over the world. I think of Peterson, JB. I mean, he's more of a Martinson character in this case, because I'm like the Kierkegaard to his Martinson. I know, like, I'm not saying I'm Kierkegaard. I'm saying, like, you know, the standards have gotten really low. Like, so he's no Martinson. In other words, this is basically like Fairview versus Berwin, the other way around. Berwin, me, Fairview, Peterson. Kind of rendition, rerun, like a crappy remake that compared to, you know, Kierkegaard spat with Martinson at the end of his life. Not that anyone's life is gonna, it's just an arm wrestle. Again, see, the stakes are much lower. We've become more and more saturated with garbage and nonsense and mediocrity since Kierkegaard, you know, correctly anticipated that we would, you know, over 100 years ago, 180 years ago or something like that. Anyways, where was I again? I need some more coffee. That sure ain't no chicory. That's a real deal right there. Much better. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, so this was just going to be the first installment of a very, maybe long, maybe I'll be doing this till I'm 65 years old, who knows. D'Anthony Storm was a really amazing commentator who passed away very sadly and prematurely a few years ago. I would heavy-handedly, but somehow indirectly, I guess, just to be slight about it or whatever, to be not so pedantic or dogmatic, but you know, I started reading Diogenes lately and I feel more and more like a dogmatist, like in the doggy style kind of sense. Not that one. I'm asexual now, except for trees. I'm a tree fucker now, because just the romantic luck has not been going my way. That's too much Friedrich Nietzsche. I'm trying to get back on the Kierkegaard, because every time I seem to read Kierkegaard, I mean, this is weird. I mean, this is not healthy probably in it by any stretch, but I seem to have better luck, like erotically speaking. Just nicer times, just sort of more pleasant. And then with Nietzsche, it's either everyone's weirded out or they just come after me, and it's like scary in a scary way, and then I'm gotta go hide again. But where was I again? Yeah, so I was just gonna make this kind of a simple, psychologically disorienting introduction to a longish deliberation until I'm 95 years old, if I live that long, or we're not crawling around with 6 legs and nuclear waste with cockroaches and vultures picking the bones of, you know, non-American babies for food or whatever it is. That's going to happen if we keep going along with capitalism. Where was I again? Oh, so Fear and Trembling, I'll get to that later, and the Tarquinius Superboost story, because I've got a few thoughts on that. It's often overlooked in expositions, or at least in classrooms, and I think that's to the peril of it's kind of, if you want to say, revitalized or repeated explication for the times we're in now, which is a pretty daunting task for Kierkegaardians, because Kierkegaard was already saying things that we still seem to not have quite even come close to wrapping our minds around, about the concepts that play in our everyday existence, or the concept, rather, not concepts, but the relationship that we have to those concepts in light of our usually our utter failure to live up to them or even really pursue them, even though it might look like that's what we're trying to do sometimes. Jordan Peterson. Man, there's something really, really disgusting in my throat trying to come out. Sorry about that. But anyways, yeah, I'm sorry. You shouldn't kick a guy when he's down like that. If you're out there, Jordan, don't worry. Like I said, kind of a pacifist. Like, I mean, if it gets really Fairview, and we've had a few in us, like, nobody knows, you know, what's going to happen there. But we'll get there when we get there. Anyways, that's why we got to do this in Berwyn, because Fairview, as soon as they see my hat, they're going to, you know, ask me if I'm a fag or something and try to beat me up, especially if they see that I'm reading a book. They're like, you know, the Hicks thing. What you reading for? You know, it's like, what are you reading? Remember, it's in Fairview, it's more like, what you reading for? It's like, yeah, so I don't have to kind of live in Fairview next to you in the saloon ready to beat me up because I'm doing something that you regularly, I hope, tell your children is a good thing to do. Just, yeah, I don't want to fight or anything, bucko, but that's what they all go by up there. It's weird. It's everyone's bucko. Like even the cows, the kids, everyone, the trees, they bump into like a fire hydrant, they stub their toe or something, they're just like, bucko, what's up with that? Like, they personify everything as a bucko. It's some sort of weird animism, redneck animism that got going since that conservative fascist takeover the other day. Man, Alberta, it's weird being from there, but I do want to go back someday. As long as I'm heavily but neutrally armed with indirect communication skills of my mimesis to, you know, and maybe a few fake Trump hats just in case I have to put one on right away and pretend to be one of them, so they don't, whatever they do, like throw you around, call you names based on things that they're afraid of without knowing why they're afraid of them, because it's actually just usually some sort of paranoid projection of their own sense of inadequacy. Yeah, toxic masculinity, so on. That's a whole other story. Let's get rid of that. That's like more of a Nietzschean thing. Kierkegaard, okay, say what you will about the breakup, but yeah, he's got a point. I mean, it's not easy to write that much in that short of time about the kind of things that he's talking about, and have a person that lives with you at the same time, while at the same time not making them completely miserable and dragging them into your massive exploration of the human condition. It's just a tricky balance. Like, they like saying balance. I don't know, anyways, they kind of made up, but she married some douchebag civil servant, and, you know, he said, don't talk to that Soren, because, like, I don't like him, something about him. It's like, yeah, he's smarter than you, that's obviously but where was I? Oh, the colors. I'll just show you a few of these colors. Back in the 60s, they really knew how to do this. See that? Beautiful. Kind of aqua-ish, whatever that's called. Same color as the typewriter my dad gave me from his grade 3 class. I think that's when he dropped out. No, I think grade 8. This is the hot pink version. And it's my nails matched. Isn't that nice? That was not on purpose, I promise. That was a random thing the other night. We'll not get into that either, but this is my hottest copy of Kierkegaard, hot pink. That's Philosophical Fragments. There's a nice taupe edition here. Taupe, and again, like an aqua-ish kind of thing going on, of The Concept of Dread. That's Walter Lowry's translation of what is usually now translated as The Concept of Anxiety. This kind of puke, what do you call it? It's like that, that pea soup that, what's her name, coughs out and pukes all over the place in The Exorcist. It's kind of that color, which is why I like it. It's yeah, with a bit of regular pea, kind of dark pea color. Reagan, that's her name. Is that a coincidence? I wonder. So, and then, you know, the standard kind of Hong edition of, this is just the notes. This is just the scholarly apparatus that goes into the journals, Hegel passages, ancient Greek references. Very, very helpful that Hong and Hong did. But this is the for this text, which is, in my view, well, the most involved philosophical kind of prank, in a way, ever perpetrated in the Western tradition, because it's designed as the, well, as it says, the title is this hilariously convoluted, long, concluding, unscientific, self-deprecating a bit in a way, but also teasing the other, postscript to the other, I mean, being the scientific Hegelian, or at least Hegel's followers, thinking that what they were doing was a science, whereas Kierkegaard was saying, no, existence is, maybe if it's a science, it's only for God, because science, at least in his conception, and he's following Hegel here, I think, to some degree, has to be systematic, which requires a kind of broad or, you know, objective or separate point of view, transcendent point of view, vis-a-vis the object or the theme that it portends to be it purports to be a system of. But for Kierkegaard's point, partly in this book, one of the main sort of theses, of course, no, sorry, not Kierkegaard's point, it's Johannes Climacus's, the pseudonym, his gesture in this book, one of the main ones of many, is to say that existence, if it is a system, could be one only, and he does couch it in this hypothetical kind of language. If existence were a system, it would be one only for God, or for something in this traditional sense of omniscient, transcendent, can know existence as a system, but can't be so for us. So the other comical gesture, right, comes after unscientific, is postscript to the philosophical fragments. So it's just a postscript, which is typically, the shortest, if not one of the shortest parts of a book. It's usually kind of included in the same work. This postscript runs to like, 700 pages or something like along these lines, 600 pages, whereas the original that it's referring to has this, again, this modest sounding title too. So you'd expect the philosophical fragments or scraps. The Danish is Philosophiske Schmule. I can't pronounce the Danish properly, but it's something like the scraps, the leftovers, the detritus, maybe even. I don't know if it has that connotation, but why not? It's fragments of philosophy, although it's written in a more rigorous kind of way. It seems like it's trying to throw you off. It's a sustained a comparison between Socrates and Jesus Christ as figures in their relationship to truth that they each have. He makes this paradoxical claim that the similarity between Jesus Christ and Socrates consists in their dissimilarity, and it sounds this paradoxical. We'll get into that, like, I don't know, like 10 years from now when I finish the show and tell. So, just the last thing in the show and tell, maybe I'll continue it in another video at some point, is this beautiful, beautiful copy of the original Danish philosophical fragments that was published by the same, publishers Kierkegaard used back in his day. How many years ago was that? I'm going to just do the math. Alright, I did it. Today is the 176th anniversary of Kierkegaard's first publication that was not under a pseudonym that was intended by him as part of the, what he always calls his authorship. He's basically, what makes Kierkegaard, one of the many things I think that makes him such an extraordinary author to this day is, and forevermore, is that he, oh, look at that, the 6th edition, ooh, creepy, the 6th edition of Philosophical Fragments was published in 1966, so it's 6th edition, 66. These guys know what they're doing. Denmark, they don't mess around with that stuff, okay? Coffee's really good too, careful with that. What the hell? Maximum video size reach? What does that even mean? Man, phones, they're predatory. Anyways, that's the original Danish, and what was I saying again? It's the 176th anniversary today of the two upbuilding or edifying discourses of Kierkegaard, the first non-pseudonymous work. And next time I will talk about the epigraph from Fear and Trembling specifically, and a few other things in that work, and try to relate it to, or show how I think that it can be helpfully read in light of the concept that was later developed by the most important philosopher of the 21st century, Raphael Lemkin, and the 20th century for that matter, the concept of genocide, and how that plays into this this really convoluted, well, not convoluted, okay, complicated, that's what I meant to say. It's not convoluted, it's very precise. What Kierkegaard says about reviewers. If they dare lay a dialectical finger on this, they will come to regret it. Not in some sort of, woo, I'm going to beat you up at the Fairview Bar kind of way because you're reading a book again and what's that for, but in the sense that you're going to make a fool of yourself because existence has its revenge on people that take out their resentment on geniuses like Kierkegaard. Or so our faith, our Kierkegaardian faith, at least hopes, because, isn't there any justice in this world? In the literary world, sometimes there is, and, there's lots of trash talk about Kierkegaard. Oh, he's an emo kid or something, is like by people that haven't read much of it, because it terrifies them, and because the truth is not always an easy thing to investigate. Ooh. Fuckers. All right. See you next time. face the currency.